damaging impacts on the empire. He's really famous for killing people just for the pleasure of it. This is horrible and gross, but he literally will have women and children, innocent women and children, and innocent men, like thrown off of cliffs for his pleasure. I mean, he's crazy. Okay, so at any given time, obviously the society is terrified because at any time you never know what's lurking around the corner. Your name could be called to be killed, essentially. And what he's really famous for too is actually, so the gladiator games are a thing in Roman society, as you know right now. He actually finds a way to legally, like by law, make the gladiator games longer and bloodier, so that basically the gladiators bleed more, and the guy that dies a long, slow death, more miserable death rather than a quick death. There were rewards for prolonging the game. I mean, this guy is sick. The only thing that he does that's kind of redemptive in terms of his mind is by the end of his life, he launches a what's thought to be what's actually evidence has shown that it may have been a pretty well designed campaign to try to invade Britain. He does have armies head up to the north. He does have armies march north all the way up to Britain, all the way up to the coast, looking across toward Britain. And it's actually thought that he had a really strategic, good plan to try to invade Britain that he wasn't able to execute, and that's why there's kind of this redeeming factor that people say maybe he wasn't mentally insane, maybe he was just really narcissistic and liked killing people. But on the flip side, there's also a story that when they got to the ocean, he made his soldiers kind of get seashells and was going to declare war on the god of the sea, Neptune. And so the stories are kind of crazy. He also was joking, maybe he wasn't joking, about making his horse like a leader in the government. I mean, this guy was crazy. So you kind of get the picture, all right? But the most important thing to understand about Caligula and Nero, who we're about to say both, is this idea of a reign of terror where the guy that is leading is just irrationally killing people, and things are scary if you live in Rome at that time. Okay, so what I want you to actually write down for Caligula is you already have these mentally disturbed. You've got the second thing you can write down is he started by throwing money at people, so people loved him. Okay, remember you can pause. I'm going to say these quick because you can pause it. He started by throwing money at the crowds, and they loved him. Something switched in his mind 6 months into his rule, and he went crazy, and the reign of terror begins. And if you want to underline reign of terror and kind of put a star by it or an arrow out that says, hey, reign of terror, when the ruler behaves super irrationally, a lot of times he kills people. You never know what he's going to do. You fear for your life, seriously, walking around the streets. That's a reign of terror. I want you to add that. He kills for the entertainment of it. You can also put that he's very narcissistic. You can have that comma, or you can make a separate bullet point. He's very narcissistic. He has no moral compass. He has no empathy for anybody else, so he's cool. He's just down to kill people. I mean, this guy's crazy. And that's kind of like, he wasn't that much of an abnormal guy. I mean, Nero was kind of a lot like him, and so I'm not overplaying this. This guy was crazy. The point of all of this is to go back to understanding an empire, kind of like we talked about in the fall, understanding Octavian's, the keys of stability that he laid that allows the foundation of the empire to survive through a crazy leader like Caligula. We'll talk a little bit more. Today I want to introduce you to these guys. We'll talk a little bit more on Monday about what that actually looked like, what that balance of power actually looked like. The last thing you could say, the last two things you could say, he made the gladiator games more bloody. You get the picture. And then the last thing is he's actually, honestly, one of the most concrete reasons that the empire doesn't collapse under his rule is that he's assassinated. He's murdered in cold blood by two of his guards after 4 years of rule in 41 AD. He's murdered by two of his guards who he had just brutally mistreated, and they took out revenge and took him out one night. So he only gets to rule for 4 years. So the last thing is you can say he dies by being murdered. Right on. Nero. Okay, so if you're looking at your watch, like, shoot, we've been talking for a while. Dang it. don't worry. Caligula and Nero get the kind of longer talks to kind of get their picture. It's easier to talk about Trajan and Marcus Aurelius because they were just solid. They just did some cool things, and they were good. They were, again, not even my opinion, good. Like, they were just known as good. They're two of the five good emperors of this pox amount of time. So, anyways, Nero, next to his name, if you want to, now that we know this term, you can also write Reign of Terror, okay? I don't know why I just put my glasses back on, but hey. Nero, next to his name, I want you to also write Reign of Terror, okay? 54 to 68, so he's a couple rulers after Caligula. Basically, what you have written down is he's a good administrator, but he's vicious. Again, we'll unpack that a little bit more on Monday. He does some good things, which is kind of the crazy thing about him, is he's like, quote-unquote, decent policies, but he's vicious, okay? You have that he murdered many, and what you can add there to your point, if you're adding straight to your notes right now, you can literally add, again, like Caligula, he murdered many, particularly like high-ranking officials that he didn't like or felt like killing. This guy has a similar mindset as Caligula, where he's just down to kill people, and he's not a really good, sound, like stable, mentally stable ruler. He's just kind of crazy, okay? That's why, again, we say it's a reign of terror. And he reigns for 14 years, which is a lot scarier than Caligula's 4, okay? So he's going to kill senators at will. He's going to, when I say murdered many, he kills high-ranking officials again at will. That's going to have damaging effects on the empire, but it barely holds on. The way that he comes to power is he's willing to like poison his stepbrother, who may have been in power before him. His mom was an influential woman, and he kills her. I mean, crazy, okay? Selfish, greedy, yikes. Full of himself, yikes, to the extreme, okay? Just to kind of, the other thing, one of the things that he's most famous for is he's going to put these massive building projects. That was kind of a common theme at the time, prosperous. They're glorifying Rome in the same way that Pericles was trying to glorify Athens and building the Parthenon and everything, Athenian Empire. Same kind of idea of glorifying Rome, building up stuff. But Nero's going to build things that are going to liken himself to the god Jupiter. People aren't going to like that. He's going to build lots of big buildings to make himself look great. And one thing he's really famous for in his kind of madness is he's actually going to tamper with the money, the denarius, the common coin in the empire by he's going to have guys start making coins that have copper in them and not just silver. So the outside looks like silver, but it's actually cheaper than a normal coin, and that's how he saves money. So it's actually one of the most notorious, known in ancient history, one of the first biggest economic scandals ever. I mean, anyways, you get the picture. This guy's crazy. What he's most famous for probably is the way that he brutally, publicly murders Christians. And here's a story going on here. And the side note is that we'll talk about Christianity next week, and you'll understand in this context. During Nero's reign, a very famous thing goes on. This is a whole nother story. He's crazy. He's all in a theater, and he thinks he's like this musician, and so while he's supposed to be ruling, he goes off to another city, and he's performs on the stage all the time. He's playing instruments, and anyways, while